We're here on an initial permanency hearing. Ms. Wiggins is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us representing the child. Mr. Adams is with us representing the father, Mr. Baker, who is with us. And Ms. Archer's with us representing the mother, Mrs. Baker, who is with us. That accounts for all the parties. I have Aaron Tyndall and Amy Moffett in the waiting room.
Aaron Tyndall's the worker judge.
All right, for the record, I've let Amy Moffett into the hearing. My understanding is Ms. Moffett is placement for Willow. No one objected to her being in the hearing. She may or may not be called as a witness, and no one has invoked the rule. So we will allow Ms. Moffett to sit in on the hearing. So, okay, no one's in the waiting room. Ms. Wiggins, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. I call Aaron Tyndall. And have you been the permanency specialist since the end of the adversary hearing?
Yes, I have been.
And where is the child currently placed?
She is placed in Amarillo with Amy and John Moffett.
And how is she doing in that placement?
She is doing really well in that placement.
And in regards to the placement, are they able to take care of all of her medical needs?
Absolutely.
And has she been attending her medical appointments?
Yes, she has.
Now, in regards to medical appointments, is the department or St. Francis still attending medical appointments as well?
Yes, I am. I think the only thing I have not attended was Thursday or Friday, when she had the vitamin D test, or when they drew blood for the vitamin D test. I was not there for that.
Okay, and so that was a blood draw, not an actual meeting with the doctor?
Yeah, that was just a blood draw.
Okay, and so since we've been attending appointments, no other vaccines or anything that the parents do not want to give the child has been given to the child, is that correct?
That is correct.
As far as vaccines are concerned?
Yes, as far as vaccines are concerned, yes, that's correct.
Now, in regards to the mother, how is she doing on her services?
Naya has done really well. We have completed all of the services that we have asked, as far as like counseling, parenting classes, things like that. She has stayed in pretty good contact with me. She has been attending visitations very, very well. I think the only thing on the family plan of service that we haven't completed, and it's kind of open to work around, is employment, but everything else has been completed.
Okay. And the goal is still obviously reunification, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And once we move forward with reunification, is it Naya's or Miss Baker's plan to be a stay-at-home mom?
I believe so, yes.
And is that why the department has been lax on the employment?
Yes. So far, they have been able to meet everything financially with Matthew's job. Going forward with the stuff with Matthew, we'll have to figure some things out depending on how that goes. But that is her plan, is to be a stay-at-home mom. And so that's kind of why we've let that go.
Okay. Now, in regards to visitation and am I breaking out, y'all?
No, not for me.
Okay. My camera's doing weird things on my end, so I just wanted to make sure. In regards to visitation, how has that increased now that she's completed her services?
So she completed her services. We got her last discharge letter, I believe, around March 14th. I staffed with my director and supervisor on the case about increasing visitation on the 18th. We increased it to 8 hours weekly, originally with just placement, and that was open to them to schedule. So if it was 2 hours, 4 days a week, however, even on the weekends, however they could schedule it, that's kind of how we left it open. That became a little overwhelming for placement, so we didn't pull back on time. We have just since changed it to 4 hours with placement supervising and 4 hours with St. Francis supervising in their home. So we supervise 4 hours in Naya's home with her and Willow.
And what is the goal of the increased supervised visitation, and how is that related to our goal of reunification?
So we would like to see and have eyes on Naya and Willow to, one, rebuild that bond, but also to see her utilize the things she has learned and the changes she has made since the beginning of the case until now, so that we can tell that these changes have been made and that she is working through the stuff that she has learned since the beginning. That's why we have it supervised. I check in with Amy. She tells me how things are going. Juan also reports back to me in our form that we use, so that we do have a way of tracking these changes and to make sure that everything is continuing to progress the way that it needs to.
Now, in your court report, it did appear that neither parent is, I guess, identifying or still identifies the issue of responsibility for the removal. Is that a fair statement? Does that question make sense?
Yes, that is a fair statement.
Okay. Now, based on that, are we wanting to make sure that everything is monitored and that we do make the changes so we don't have another issue that previously led to removal?
Yes. Like I said, we We want to make sure, especially with this being a new change to visitation and a pretty big increase from 2 hours weekly to 8 hours, that it is monitored and we can, surely say that the changes have been made and we don't have the same worry of removal going forward.
Now, in regards to Mr. Baker, how is he doing on his services?
Mr. Baker has completed his services. I did receive the discharge for him, I think after my court report had been filed for his last service. He is still going through fatherhood fire parenting classes, but he did complete his parenting classes with family guidance and outreach. The fatherhood fire is a 24/7 dad. It is solely him, but it also offers extra incentives and help once he's completed it. And I have received good reports that he is participating and doing well in that class as well.
And now his visitation is barred currently by a criminal bond condition. Is that correct?
Yes. As of right now, his bond restrictions is that he does not have any direct or indirect contact with Willow until such a time as that's cleared up. That's kind of how we're moving forward.
Okay. And him and Naya still reside together. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And in regards to the visitation that's being done in Naya's home, that's when Matthew is at work. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And clearly they know beforehand what time it is, so Matthew can stay away from the house at all those times. Is that correct?
Yes, and they do have it scheduled during his working hours so that it does not keep him away from his home at any point in time. I'm assuming I think he gets off at 5. So it doesn't keep him away from the home, but it still allows visitation to be in Willow's home with Naya.
Now, do you believe it would be contrary to the child's welfare to be returned home to either parent today?
Today, yes.
But that is the continuation or the continuing goal in the future for this case.
Yes. Reunification is our goal.
Okay, I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, thank you. Ms. Tyndall, these parents, in my experience, they've really jumped on their services. They've done the services quicker than I would say 99% of my cases. Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
But the underlying condition that Ms. Wiggins hit on, we still don't have an answer as to how Willow had the fracture. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So in addition to being contrary to her best interest to be returned today, would you say that it could be a danger to her physical health and safety to be returned to either parent today?
Yes, today. Yes, I would say that.
So they've done everything they've been asked to do. It sounds like we just have to get some kind of resolution as to how Willow was injured and who did it. Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment.
Okay. All right. Okay. Ms. Archer, any questions?
Yes, Judge. I'm sorry I'm so sick today. Ms. Tyndall, on page 13 of your report, you mentioned Willow not being diagnosed with the OI. But isn't it true it hasn't been ruled out either?
We have no definitive answer on that. And that's been a very frustrating issue. She has one gene, and from what I understand from the doctors that she has seen, is she has no symptoms of OI, any of the actual physical or internal symptoms of this. She just carries the one gene. So we do not have a diagnosis of OI.
And didn't the geneticist recommend the bone density test?
He did not, actually. And we have tried to reach back out to the geneticist for that referral. I have also tried to continue to get a referral from her pediatrician. There is nobody in Amarillo or even Lubbock that does the bone density test. And from what I understand, again, I'm not a medical professional, so this is somewhat above my understanding. But from what I understand of what he said is in infants, a bone density test, there's nothing to, I guess, gauge it by. So while there will be a change, he did say that in the appointment, is while there would be a change from 3 months to 6 months, there's nothing to measure that to in such a young child. An actual doctor could probably make that make sense.
So the geneticist can't point us to a place for a bone density test.
I believe Cook's in Dallas is one that could do an infant bone density test, but he did not send in a referral for one, and the pediatrician did not recommend a referral for one, although she did say she would look for one when I asked if we could get one.
Would you be willing to follow up on that?
Absolutely.
Now, on page 14 of your report, you mentioned Hope Choice assisting in more parenting services. What exactly did you have in mind?
So It's through Family Support Services, and it is a program called HOPE, and it is for children who have been in some type of physical neglect or abusive situation, whether intentional, unintentional. It's for that type of situation. This was put in place at the very beginning, but they do an in-home service. So while we have got visitation just now starting in home, I will be reaching out to them to see if they can go ahead and start that program during our visitation. If not, then we will start it once reunification has started. But it is an in-home service between mother and child.
Okay, so it's not really extra hours. It's
No.
within the
Yeah,
scope. Okay. And now, would you agree that the failure to thrive diagnosis that we had at the beginning of this case, has that been resolved now that the
Yes.
mother and placement have found the right formula?
Yes, I feel like failure to thrive is no longer an issue with Willow. Her pediatrician was extremely happy with her growth chart, with where she is at, that she states she is a healthy, happy baby.
And Miss Baker has been allowing St. Francis, I think Juan is the visitation, into her home.
Yes, she has allowed Juan into her home, and I have good reports on those visitations.
Since visitation is going well, are there times that St. Francis would allow Miss Baker and Juan to go on walks and places outside the home now?
I would have to speak with Juan since he is the one supervising that, but I believe if he felt comfortable, I mean, a walk outside with Naya and Willow, that's not outside the realm of possibility at all.
And I know that, well, I'll ask you, has placement mentioned appreciating some help in her supervisions from Mandy Cartwright?
Placement has appreciated any help that we can offer, and we have approved Mandy Cartwright to be a babysitter, so that I believe if placement wanted to take their family out to dinner and just have family time, Mandy is able to watch Willow at that. I think they did that actually pretty recently, last week. And so, yes, they have definitely appreciated having that backup babysitter.
Right, wonderful. So Ms. Baker has a great support system.
Yes, she does.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Tyndall, who is Juan?
Juan Heredia is our family support worker. So he is one that works with St. Francis, and he does their visitations.
Okay, so he's employed by St. Francis. He's just supervising the visitation period, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, I certainly have no problem with, as long as Juan's along, if they all agree they want to go on walks or whatever they want to do. I don't think it should be restricted to a resident. So as far as I'm concerned, that would be fine. So, okay. And I'm sure you've talked to the pediatricians and all about getting Willow a bone density test. This is my 2 cents worth. I had to have a bone density test, and they told me that I had mine done at Harrington Breast Cancer Center here in Amarillo, but that's obviously I'm not an infant. So if that hasn't been checked into, they might could tell you who they might be able to tell you who could do a bone density test on an infant. So I'm just throwing that out that I was very impressed.
Follow up.
I was very impressed with their facility. So they may not do them on infants either, but that's all I know about that. So Mr. Adams, any questions?
I have no questions at this time, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
Okay. Ms. Wiggins, do you have any other witnesses?
Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. No, Your Honor, we don't. We have, I have also attempted to reach out to medical professionals in the area for the bone density test. It's my understanding that there's no standardized measure for children's bone density. And so that's kind of the issue. Nobody wants to order it because the result would be meaningless. But obviously, if that's something that we will still go forward with, if we can get a recommendation from a doctor.
Okay. And I understand how that goes. You can't do anything anymore without having a referral. So, okay, then, Ms. Archer, did you have any witnesses?
No. May I ask a follow-up question for clarification?
Yes, ma'am.
If Mandy Cartwright is allowed to babysit, is Naya allowed to be present during that time?
That would, do you want the department to answer or myself to answer? Because we've talked about this, and if it goes into her 8 hours, and it was, Judge, I don't know what you want to order, but that's kind of an issue that ongoing issue that we've had. And so I don't know if you just want us to address it among the parties, or if you want to address it.
I don't like to micromanage visitation schedules. So if it becomes a big issue, somebody will file a motion to change what's going on, and then I'll rule at that time. But I don't micromanage those kind of things. So yeah, I won't address it until it becomes an issue that's before the court. I guess that's the best way I can put it. Okay, Ms. Archer, again, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Adams, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ingram. Recommendations?
Continue department as temporary managing conservator, continue placement as is. I think Willow continues to do well, get better. And I think all parties are trying to work together for her benefit.
Yeah, that's what I see happening. It's nice to hear. So, okay, then I will continue department as temporary managing conservator, continue Willow's current placement. I'll set the next hearing in this case for August 5th, 2024. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of August 5th. Ms. Wiggins is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us representing the child. Mr. Hill is with us representing the father, Mr. Velarde, who I thought was with us. I don't see him now.
Judge, it should be under Ruby Renteria. He and Ruby Renteria are together.
Okay. And she was in the waiting room and I let her in and she fell out before she made it. So I'll watch the waiting room to see if they reappear.
And I just spoke to him about 60 seconds ago, so I know that they were in the waiting room when I spoke to him, so they know to call back, I guess.
Okay, all right. And then Miss Archer's with us representing the mother, Miss Renteria. So we'll give it a couple minutes to see if they come back into the waiting room. Further from the parents?
No, sir, let me reach back out to him.
Okay.
Judge, just so you know, I don't know if I'll be able to finish today.
Okay. Well, if we don't get them pretty quick, I was just looking at my calendar. We could reset this to Wednesday if the attorneys can make it.
Okay. If they don't pop on, I would at least try to get through my medical witnesses that I subpoenaed.
Okay.
But just letting you know.
Okay. We'll give them a couple more minutes, then we'll go ahead and do what we need to, and then we can recess. If we can't, if we can't do it Wednesday, we'll find another day to pick it up shortly.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
This is Judge Graham. We have a Ruby Renteria, the mother in this case. Can you hear me, ma'am? She's not connected to audio.
They told me that they were in the waiting room and they said that they went past the waiting room and that they were then stuck with a screen that said connecting.
Okay, they're now connected. I've let in Ruby Renteria, the mother in this case. She's now with us. Miss Renteria, if you would unmute. If you're on a phone line, you can hit *6.
I don't know why it was so much feedback. Is it possible for us to continue since we know they can hear us and then they can talk to their attorneys if we need them to testify later Wednesday?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and you can get your experts, I guess your medical witnesses in, and then we'll if y'all check your calendars, we'll reconvene Wednesday, either late morning or early afternoon. So, okay, yeah, let's go ahead. So, Miss Wiggins, your first witness.
Casey Turlington.
Miss Wiggins.
Thank you, Judge. Miss Turlington, how are you currently employed?
I'm an RN at Northwest in the NICU.
And how long have you worked in the NICU?
Since October of 2010.
And which hospital do you work in?
Northwest.
And during the course of your employment, have you been treating a child named Violet?
She does go by a different name. They're under the mother's name until they are discharged from the hospital.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me. Now, how long has the baby been in the hospital?
Since delivery. I'm not sure exactly, but since she was delivered.
Okay, and if I have a date of birth of February 1, 2024, does that sound about right?
Yes.
And what type of medical issues does the child have?
Your Honor, are you ordering me to testify and or release protected health information and mental health treatment related to Violet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So she was a 26-weeker, and so she has had to be in the hospital for several months, working on being able to breathe. Her lungs were underdeveloped. Everything was underdeveloped because she was 14 weeks early. And so she's been on multiple kinds of oxygen and TPN and lipids and IV fluids, and I believe we're working on bottle feedings and things.
Okay. Does she have an expected release date?
No, we generally tell parents that they can assume their baby will go home around the due date of whatever day their baby was due to be born.
Okay. And at what week do you consider the full term?
40 weeks.
Now, in regards to the child, once the child is released from the hospital, do y'all have any idea about what type of medical treatment will be needed in the home?
No, not until they're actually closer to be discharged. Some babies will have to go on oxygen. Some babies will require feeding tubes and different things. So until she's actually being released, there's no really way to know.
Okay. And have the parents been visiting the child?
Yes.
And the mother, Ruby Renteria, has she been visiting?
Yes.
And have you had any occasions where you've monitored or seen any interactions between Miss Renteria and the child?
Yes.
Have there been anything of note that you've noted that's a concern?
I have had, I did have to write some notes. There was a day that I was taking care of Violet, and the mother was there, Ruby, and she did not, during this time, I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. Okay, so during that day, I asked her if she wanted to take the temperature and change the diaper, which is something that we encourage our parents to do, to be more involved and to learn how to handle their babies. She did attempt to take the temperature, and then she did not want to do anything after that. She tried to take the temperature and couldn't. It kept reading too low. So she handed it off to me, and then had a seat and didn't really have any more interaction with Violet for that assessment time. But I noticed she was had her phone angled at me funny, and she was recording me. And so I asked her if she was recording me, and she said no. But my other nurse was on the other side of the room. My roommate had the other babies, and she said, yes, she is recording you right now. So I did ask her to stop recording. She said she just needed to figure out how we fed the baby. But I mean, I don't know. I told her not to record me, and we made her delete the recordings. And then later that day, there was another interaction where, I had asked her if she wanted to take the temperature and change the diaper, and she just kind of ignored me. And so I went ahead and did my things and took the temperature and listened to the baby and did my assessment. And then I asked the mom again if she wanted to change the diaper, and she just said no, and then kind of ignored me. But then she started to kind of mutter under her breath, like she was talking to me. And so I asked her a few times what she was saying, and she never did actually talk to me, but she did look next to her like she was talking to someone. And then she said, go ahead and take the picture. Go ahead. Like she was talking to someone, but there was no one there. And she was not talking to me.
And are those your two interactions that day or any day that you noted any type of concern?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, thank you, Ms. Archer.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Archer?
Yes. Ms. Turlington, don't a lot of parents get nervous when they're handling small, fragile infants in the NICU?
Yes.
So it wouldn't be unusual for a mom not to want to take temperature and so forth, would it?
That is true. Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Hill?
Ma'am, are there any signs in the NICU that say no recording?
I think that there's maybe one at the front that says no recording devices or no. I believe so. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, you think there are, but you're not sure.
That is correct.
Okay. Were you doing anything that you shouldn't have been doing that you felt you didn't want recorded?
Oh, no.
Then why did you make her delete it? And under what authority did you make her delete it?
Well, she was recording me without my permission. And so I did not feel that that was acceptable.
You understand that it's not illegal to record someone without their permission, right?
I did not know that. I figured there was probably rules about that.
Okay, well, now you know.
Okay, I do.
And under what authority did you make her delete it?
Judge, I'm going to object. She's answered this question.
Sustain.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anyone have follow-ups for Ms. Turlington?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then, can she be excused?
I have no objection.
Who's your next witness, Ms. Wiggins?
It's going to be Debbie Turner. Might be
Okay.
Deborah.
Ms. Turlington, is Ms. Turner with you?
No, she is on Zoom from her home.
Oh, okay. All right, then, Ms. Turlington, you're free to go if you choose. I'll go ahead and remove you. Well, I'm not going to remove you because there may be someone else with you that's going to testify. I don't know.
And Judge, I can
Oh.
call who's ever in the room. It doesn't, there's no order.
Okay. Ms. Turlington, who else?
They're on their own Zooms also. It's Mary Holiday and Nicole Montez, but they are also logged in with Zoom too.
Okay, yeah, I see them in the waiting room. So, okay, Ms. Turlington, then you are free to go about your day's business. Thank you for your testimony.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Bye.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Holiday, how are you currently employed?
I'm a nurse at Northwest Texas Hospital in the neonatal intensive care unit.
And during the course of your care for the child, have you had any contact with the parents?
Yes, ma'am.
And specifically your contact with the mother, has there been anything out of the ordinary, unusual to you in regards to your interactions?
Yes, ma'am. Ruby comes to visit her baby quite often. And because of her frequency, I have learned to know Ruby's demeanor, I guess I would say. I was actually the nurse that transported her baby on the day of delivery from Dumas. And so I was able to meet Ruby at delivery day one, explain to her about the care of her child, and made a connection with her immediately. Within a couple of days, I was able to talk to Ruby and explain to her about her baby. A lot of times when we have a connection in that way, they feel safer with the first nurse that they made contact with, especially during a transport process. And then as days have gone on, Ruby will come in either very open and talkative, or she'll walk with her head hanging down and I'll greet her and she'll raise her hand and wave. She won't speak. There was one day I was actually the charge nurse that day. I was not taking care of Violet, but I was in charge of the unit. And the nurse that was caring for the baby called me to the bedside and was concerned for Ruby. So I walked in and because I felt like I had a good rapport with her, wanted to check in with her, see how things were going. You know, our moms can become depressed, anxious, sad because their babies are in the unit. It's not an unusual thing that we check in with them. She, again, was very abrasive. Everything's fine. How's Ruby? If Ruby's fine. So she was very short, very abrasive, very curt, which is not normally like her. So I said, yep, Ruby's doing well, updated her. Violet's doing well. I did update her. She was very anxious, holding the backpack she had, rocking back and forth in the chair. I just asked her if we could do anything for her. And I said, have things changed at home? Is something going home, not home? And she was like, why would you ask me about things at home? And so very quickly I said, I just noticed you were anxious. Just want to know if there's any way we can help you. And she said, no, just take care of my baby. And so I said, yes, ma'am. And then later through the shift, Ruby tends to be dropped off in the morning, early in the morning, I would say about 4 or 5 in the morning, and is left at the hospital. And she stays at the bedside or visits at Ronald McDonald for a break. We have a room right outside the unit to where the parents can have a little bit of respite time. And then she'll come back in the unit. So later in the day, she came back in to be at the bedside. And the nurse again called me to the bedside. She was muttering numbers. She was watching the monitor, and it came to be known that she was reading the heart rate out loud over and over. For example, saying 168, 142, 146, 178, 176. How was her heart rate? 152. And so the nurse was concerned for her. Again, I came to the bedside and talked to her, and she didn't communicate very well. She just said, I just don't need her heart rate to go down. I don't need her heart rate to go down. So she seemed to be.
Let me just pause you right there. Did you have, I guess, in the course of your work, you indicated that it's not uncommon for moms to be depressed, have anxiety, things like that. Is this a common, what you observed at that point in time, was that a common reaction or something that you've seen parents have in response to their baby?
It was uncommon, and this is why it was. I wasn't surprised that I was called to the bedside by the nurse for concern for the mom because of the anxiety and the stress that is related with having a patient in the neonatal ICU. but the way Ruby was behaving was very uncommon and very over the top anxious, I would say. Very,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
very focused on the baby's heart rate.
Okay. And when you say concerned for her behavior, what, as a nurse, did you form any conclusions, or did you have, what made you have concerns, I guess? What stood out to you?
What stood out to me was her focus on the one number on the monitor that we had in previous conversations, me personally explained to her why we have the monitor, what the monitor, the purpose is to give the nurse a little bit of an alert, but that the monitor is not always 100% correct, that we will always refer to her baby to double check her baby, and that sometimes the monitor doesn't work well, so we don't want her to be so worried about the number or if it's beeping. And it seemed like she was super hyper focused just on that number and just kept repeating the numbers over and over and over to herself. So it concerned me that she wasn't processing the information appropriately, not just, excuse me, not just from a medical standpoint, but from the basic teaching we had taught her with the monitor and the appropriateness of her baby.
And is it important from your perspective, that a mom be able to process the information, given that the child would then be going home to the mother?
Absolutely. That was part of my focus in speaking to her, to see where she was at. Was she in a stress place because something going on at home, or because Ruby was made aware that Violet was doing good? She was stable. Those numbers were very appropriate for her age and gestation. And I wanted to reiterate that to her so that she could be aware that that number was normal, so that she wouldn't be worried, and have that teaching so that when it is time to go home, she is aware of what is normal and abnormal.
Okay. And after you had your interaction with her and kind of explained that, did it seem like she understood, or did the behavior continue?
The behavior continued, and it actually escalated to a different behavior. She had brought some blankets in for Violet, and she was sitting at the bedside, and she would reach down into the diaper bag, take a blanket out. She would look at it, throw it over the top of the isolette, and she would sit down and she would look at it, and she'd shake her head, and she'd grab the blanket, fold it up, put it back into the diaper bag, and she would cross her arms, and then she'd grab the exact same blanket, shake it out, lay it over the top of the bed, and stare it at again, and then shake her head. And she did that, I don't know, 6 or 7 times in my presence. And again, I wasn't the nurse caring for her baby at that time. The bedside staff nurse came to me as a charge nurse to address these things. So her behavior was really out of the norm. It wasn't just a mom deciding which blanket she liked better for her baby's bed. It was the same blanket, obsessively folding it, putting it back, shaking her head, taking it back, putting it back on the bed. Her focus was the blanket and not necessarily Violet in that time frame.
Okay. And other than those instances that day, have you seen anything else that has caused you concern?
Generally, Ruby tends to call, which is absolutely fine. We don't have a problem with that. She does get into modes, though, that she will call 10 minutes apart for like hours. And she wants an update on her baby. And we, of course, initially will give her an update, let her know how Violet is doing. And then she'll hang up and she'll call back in 10 minutes and ask for another update. And we will reassure her that nothing has changed in the last 10 minutes. We don't want to deter her from calling, but we also explain to her that we can't take care of her baby if we're on the phone every 10 minutes talking to her. And those cycles change. Sometimes she'll call once a shift, and some days she'll call 5 times back to back every 10 minutes. So there's some erratic behavior in that. Another shift, I was also the charge nurse, and she approached one of the new medical students that had come on that week for service. And so, of course, the medical student knew nothing of her daughter, and she approached the medical student and started asking questions. So I came in and interceded, and I said, Ruby, is there something I can help you with? And she just said, my baby's brain is bleeding, and when are we going to look at that again? And I just said, Ruby, we did do another study. Let's go back to the bedside and we'll talk about that. And she said, I need paperwork filled out. I need paperwork filled out based on that. And I said, okay. I said, if you have paperwork, you just bring it up here in its entirety. The physician will fill that out. And she said, I just need to know when that bleed happened. When did my baby's brain start bleeding? And this is post probably 2 or 3 patient physician conferences that she has had with the physician, where they inform her head to toe what is going on with her baby. And this is information she had previously received and been updated on. And she just seemed very confused that morning, very lost, very frantic.
Okay, is this a kind of another instance where you would describe it as you're concerned about her not processing the information for the care of the child?
Absolutely.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Ms. Archer.
Do you know if Ruby has a medical background?
I have heard things of Ruby's mental background or medical background, but I don't know anything in documented writing.
And I mean, as far as hospital experience, she's new to the whole NICU situation, true?
She has told me that she had another daughter in the NICU.
But as far as being in the NICU and trying to understand the things that you're explaining to her, it can take several times for a parent to understand. Is that true?
It can take a couple of reinforcement teachings, yes, ma'am.
And it's a good thing for a mom to want to spend a lot of time with a baby in a NICU, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And is the child going to need a heart rate monitor at home?
At this point, I don't know. Judge, are you ordering me to testify and or release protected health information and mental health treatment related to Violet?
Yes, that's the parent's lawyer asking you, so you can. And if you don't know what's going to be required when the child is released, that I don't know is a perfectly good answer too.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what Ruby's going to need. Excuse me, Violet's going to need. These babies take a while to show lack thereof or gains in different areas of their development. So until closer to time of discharge, we are not aware of the home health equipment they may or may not need.
So it's okay at this time that Ruby doesn't understand the heart rate monitor, correct?
I think at this point in her stay, Violet's been with us long enough that the majority of parents have a very good understanding of the monitor and its use and the heart rate variability as being a healthy, normal thing for her baby at this age and time. So I would say that at this point in time, I would expect her to be understanding the monitor by this point in time. This is not day 2 of life for her baby.
But it's not putting Violet in any more danger, correct?
No, because we are there to take care of her.
Did you ask what Ruby was doing with the blankets?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What did she say?
She didn't answer me. She just grabbed the diaper bag and rocked back and forth in the chair.
And did the blanket folding put the baby in any immediate danger?
No, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Hill?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, you said the majority of parents understand the heart rate monitor, so that means not all of them understand it. Would that be accurate?
I would say 99%. I mean, it's hard to say that 100%, but I would say 99.9% of them that are as consistent as Ruby understand the monitor within a week of life.
Okay, so that means 1% don't, right?
0.1%, I would guess, just a guess.
Okay, so not every parent understands it, correct?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Is Mr. Velarde, have you had any contact with him or observed him with the child?
I have had contact with him. I have not seen him in the care of his daughter.
Have you heard from any of your staff members that anything that he has done or said is inappropriate?
I have not heard anyone comment on the father.
Okay. And if the father had done something inappropriate or not quite correct or concerning, that would be something as the charge nurse that you would probably hear from your staff. Would that be true?
If I was the charge nurse on duty for that 12-hour shift, then yes, but I am a relief charge, so I don't consistently charge. There are some days I charge one 12-hour shift, and there are some weeks that I don't charge at all, so that's not correct. I don't always have that information unless I'm in direct care of that patient.
And when you were the charge nurse, you never received any information like that?
No, sir, I have not.
Thank you. I'll pass witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anyone have follow-ups for Ms. Holliday?
No, Your Honor.
All right, may she be excused?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Holliday, thank you for your testimony. I'll go ahead and release you so you can go about your day's business.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Wiggins, any other witnesses that you need to call today?
Yes, let's get Nicole Montez if we can. And during the course of your care of the child, have you had any interactions with the mother?
Yes.
And have there been any interactions that have caused you concern?
Your Honor, are you ordering me to testify and or release protected health information about Violet?
Yes, ma'am.
I've had some interaction. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and have you had any interactions that would cause you concern for the potential well-being of Miss Renteria or the child?
I just have had a few. I am the charge nurse in the NICU, and so I do, when issues arise with other nurses, just kind of go and talk to Ruby. I did have to talk to her about the incident where she was recording and taking pictures of our nurses. I did ask her to not take pictures, that she's more than welcome to take pictures of her baby in the unit, but not to record or take videos and pictures of the nurses, because it could be a HIPAA violation, because we do share rooms with other patients. And she was very understanding and told me she understood that. And then I have had to kind of remind her to not pace in our hallways. Sometimes she'll get up and just kind of pace around and try to go into other rooms that she needs to stay at her baby's bedside. Most of the interaction when I do talk to her, though, she tells me yes, ma'am, and then kind of will sorry, I almost dropped my phone. We'll go back to her baby's bedside.
Okay, are there any times, you said most of the time, are there any times where that is different?
Sometimes I just there's been like a few instances where I just kind of had to reinforce, like, hey, you remember, let's go back, and then she will. It's just kind of like a little reinforced kind of what we talked about, maybe not pacing in the hallway, and she'll be like, oh yeah, yes ma'am, I'm sorry, I forgot, and then she'll go back.
Okay, so you're able to redirect her behavior. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you had any interactions with the father of the child?
I have not.
Okay. Have you heard anything about his behavior that's caused anyone concern?
No, ma'am.
And when you're talking about the recording, because of the situation, you're saying that other children could be possibly in the video. Is that what your fear is on the recording?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So our rooms can, like the room she's currently in, can have up to 3 other babies in there. So there could be 4 patients in that room.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Ms. Archer,
I have no questions.
Mr. Hill,
No questions.
Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right. All right, can Ms. Montez be excused?
No objection, Judge.
No objection.
No
right.
objection.
Ms. Montez, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And how long have you worked at Northwest Texas Hospital?
Since 1997.
And in the course of your employment, have you had the care of Violet?
Yes.
And during the course of your care for the child, have you had any contact with the mother of the child, Ruby Renteria?
Yes.
And has there been an occasion in which you have witnessed anything of concern or behavior by Miss Renteria?
Phone interaction with the mom on the night that I took care of Ruby, or took care of Violet.
Okay. And so you had a phone conversation with Miss Renteria, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was concerning about the phone contact?
She started her phone conversation talking very, very fast, that you couldn't get a word in edgewise. She was very fast. And then she would talk at a normal volume, and then she would get really, really loud. Not that she's yelling, but like she's projecting to the back of a theater. And then she would bring her volume back down, but all the whole time talking very, very fast.
Okay,
she didn't seem to be current with her baby's time schedule, her feeding schedule, or really what was going on with her baby.
Okay, and was that and why was that a concern for you?
Her talking real fast, and she seemed to not be
like in tune to the conversation of what was going on with our conversation. The comments she was making about the baby and the baby's timeline was that she was just out of touch, and you couldn't get in to redirect her or to give her information. That was her first time that she called. And this one shift, she called several times. I think it was like 4 different times. And she would tell me she's going to call back in 4 hours. Well, her baby was on a 3-hour feeding schedule, which it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's very structured in the NICU. And then the next time that she called, she was saying things about how her baby was throwing up all the time, and her baby could not have 1 drop of food in her stomach, or she would throw up, and just going on and on about that. But her baby had not had any regurgitation or emesis that I got from day shift or that she'd had on my shift, and any attempts to redirect her to that, she was not open to hearing any of that. She'd tell me she'd call back in 3 hours, and she'd call me back in 20 minutes or 4 hours, thinking that 4 hours had passed.
Okay. And so she seemed to not be aware of time.
Correct.
And is that a concern for you as a nurse?
Yes.
And why is that?
For her baby would be that she needs to be aware of what's going on with her baby. And I do know that Ms. Renteria comes to see her baby a lot. I see her coming in and out of the unit a lot. But for this night, for the reason, I don't know the reason, but for this night is that she did not seem to be able to keep in her mind what time it was in relation to where her baby was on her timeline of her care.
Okay. And so
where she is.
And so with a possibly medically needy child, it's important for the mom to understand the child's care and appropriate times to care for the child.
Correct. And to be aware that her baby eats on at this time is eating on a 3-hour schedule, not on a 4-hour schedule, and to be aware that she didn't eat just 20 minutes ago and then try to feed her again when she just eaten 20 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Ms. Archer?
Has anything Ruby is doing at the hospital put the baby in any kind of immediate danger?
The night that I took care of Ruby, she did not come to the hospital. She came, it was all on the phone conversation.
And you agree there's nothing she could have done by phone that would put the child in immediate harm?
On the telephone? No. She was not at the hospital at the night that I took care of the baby. That's all I can speak to is the night that I was assigned that patient.
Thank you so much. I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Hill?
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, I believe you testified, but in case you didn't, I'm going to ask, have you had any contact with the father of the child?
I have not.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, then if no one has any further questions, can Ms. Turner be excused?
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Turner, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Have the lawyers checked their schedules about reconvening on Wednesday?
Judge, I'll just have to get in touch with Judge Board to see if he'll let me do that plea by Zoom. If he can, then the morning would work great, except for 10 o'clock.
Okay, and if we need to, Haley, what time did you say? 10:45?
10:45.
We'll shoot for that, Natalie, and if you're late, we'll wait for you. That's not a problem.
Maybe I'll tell Judge Board I don't want to get him sick.
Yeah, okay. Okay, then we will recess this case to reconvene this Wednesday, the 17th. We'll shoot for 10:45 and we'll wait on anybody
with
who's
us.
late.
Mr. Ronho is with us representing the child. Ms. Seal is with us representing the mother. Ms. Pierce, who is with us, and Ms. Stevens is with us representing the alleged father, Mr. Goldsmith, and he is with us. Okay, I have a lot of people waiting. We're back. So, Ms. Seal, you had a matter to take up?
Yes, Your Honor. My client has informed me that she does not want to utilize my services, has asked me to file a motion to withdraw, and wants to represent herself pro se.
All right. Ms. Pierce, if you'd unmute.
Okay.
All right, you've heard Ms. Seal. Is that what you want to do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to represent yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then, Ms. Seal, if you'll just submit an order to me, I'll be happy to sign it as soon as I get it, and you are free to go.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Ivy, I guess we're ready to
I
proceed.
guess so, Your Honor. I would call Miss Lenore Aguirre.
Okay.
And when or how did you become involved with Brayley's case?
I was assigned the intake for Brayley.
And when were you assigned that intake?
March the 26th, 2024.
How old is Brayley?
7 months old. Is that what you said?
And what were the reasons or allegations that were given for your assignment?
So there were concerns for medical and physical neglect by mom, Miss Pierce. It was alleged that Miss Pierce had not followed up with doctor appointments for Brayley. There was concerns of Brayley having liquid draining and redness. The biggest concern was for her and her weight, her not gaining any weight, Miss Pierce refusing to have home health services and ACI services. And then also there was concerns of possible drug use and mental health concerns.
Okay. So when you got your intake with those concerns, what was your first step? What did you do next?
I contacted the reporter.
Okay. And did you confirm that the reports were accurate?
I talked to the reporter and they confirmed.
Okay. And then did you attempt to reach out to Brayley's mother?
Yes.
And who is Brayley's mother?
It's Miss Erica Pierce.
And did you have luck contacting Miss Erica Pierce?
Yes.
When did you talk with Miss Pierce?
On March the 26th, 2024.
Did you at that time discuss the allegations that you just announced to the court were in your report?
Yes.
What was Miss Pierce's response to those allegations?
That it was not true. But she used a different word.
Okay. What parts did she say were not true?
She did not think that the allegations of Brayley being underweight or looking malnourished or underweight, or the G-tube looking red.
Which it wasn't. It wasn't.
Did you ask Miss Pierce about the fact that she had been asked to take the child to the hospital in Amarillo?
Yes.
And what was her response to that?
She did not know that there was an appointment.
Does that coincide with your conversation with the reporter?
Yes.
Did you talk with any healthcare professionals concerning Brayley and what her current healthcare situation was?
Yes, I talked to the family doctor, Dr. Faircloth.
Okay. Did you talk to any other healthcare professionals?
I talked to the home health services.
All right. Who at Home Health Services did you talk to?
The director for the home health services. I think it was Lindsay.
If I could say something on that, I have text messages stating that where I text.
Objection, Your Honor.
Ma'am.
Sorry.
No, you'll get a chance to cross-examine the witness. You want to represent yourself, but you have to follow the same rules as an attorney would. So.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Alley.
So, Lindsay Thomas, is that the Home Health Services director that you talked to?
Lindsay is the director, yes, that I talked to.
Okay. When you talked to Dr. Faircloth, did you determine that Dr. Faircloth was Brayley's doctor, regular doctor?
Yes.
And where does he work out of?
At Texas Tech Pediatric Clinic.
And did Dr. Faircloth advise you that he had attempted to admit Brayley into a local hospital?
Yes.
Do you know which hospital?
It was Northwest Texas, but.
Okay. And did he advise you that he had told Miss Pierce that he wanted Brayley admitted in the Northwest Texas hospital?
Yes.
Did Miss Pierce have a response to the child being admitted into Northwest Texas?
Yes. She did not want to go to Northwest. She wanted to go to BSA.
Did Dr. Faircloth then advise you that he attempted to have the child admitted into BSA?
Yes.
And did you confirm that the child had not been taken to BSA?
Yes.
And at that point in time, Dr. Faircloth was Brayley's primary physician.
Yes.
And Brayley had been in the care of her mother, Miss Pierce, for some time.
Yes.
Did you determine, well, first of all, Brayley was born in August, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know if she was a full-term child?
No, she wasn't.
And do you know how long she was in the hospital at birth?
She was in the NICU.
Do you know for how long?
I don't know exactly how long.
4 months.
And did you review any CPS history concerning Miss Pierce and Brayley?
Yes.
And did you determine that there had been some concerns about Miss Pierce taking Brayley from the hospital at birth?
Say the question one more time.
Yes, ma'am. Did you determine, based upon your review of the history, that there were concerns about Miss Pierce taking Brayley from the hospital when the hospital was releasing Brayley at birth?
Yes.
And what were those concerns?
There was concerns of her feeding Brayley and also knowing the proper way because she was still on this G-tube.
And based upon what Dr. Faircloth has told you, does that still the concern that the department has with Miss Pierce and Brayley?
Yes.
Dr. Faircloth attempted to have the child placed at BSA upon Miss Pierce's request for it to be BSA as opposed to Northwest?
Yes.
Do you know if Brayley was taken to BSA at that time?
No.
Did you talk to Miss Pierce about the fact that she did not take Brayley to the hospital at that time?
I did have a conversation with her.
No.
She's breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up really bad.
Miss
Okay,
Gary.
Mr. Gary, we didn't hear any of that. You broke up very badly.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Can you hear?
Miss Pierce did not, when you talked with Miss Pierce about not taking Brayley to BSA, what was her response?
That she was going to get a second opinion.
And
I can hear y'all.
Okay. Do you know if Miss Pierce took the child to another doctor for a second opinion?
No.
Has she provided you with any names of any other doctors?
No.
Did you inform Miss Pierce at any time that the department was going to be seeking to have custody of Brayley?
Yes. She was contacted, or it was relayed by her mother.
Okay. And did she then, what was her response, or were you able to find her after that?
No, we were not able to.
Do you know how long it took to be able to find Brayley after that?
Approximately about 2 weeks, 13 days.
Have you had an opportunity to talk to Miss Pierce since the child has come into the care of the department?
Yes.
Did Miss Pierce tell you why it was so difficult to find her and Brayley?
She was scared.
Do you know what she was scared of?
She was just scared. I don't have any.
They were taking my baby.
after the department took possession of the child, where was the child placed?
At the hospital,
Which hospital?
Northwest Texas Hospital, Amarillo, Texas.
And where is the child currently placed?
In the hospital. In
So the child,
further.
the child, and do you know when the child was taken into possession of the department?
On April the 9th.
So for the last 6 days, the child's been in the hospital?
Yes.
In the hospital has continued to give professional care to this child?
Yes.
Nobody at the hospital has told you that there was no reason for the child to be in the hospital?
No.
And in fact, they have taken responsibility and cared for the child since we took possession of the child on the 6th.
Yes.
Did you ask Miss Pierce who the father to Brayley was?
No.
And did you research to try to determine who the father to Brayley was?
Yes, I did.
And did you find out who is the alleged father to Brayley?
Yes, Eric Goldsmith.
And were you able to locate Eric Goldsmith?
Yes.
And have you talked with him about the circumstances?
Yes.
And what was his response to all of what's going on with this little girl?
He had a lot of concerns about Brayley and having the medical needs that she needs to be taken care of.
Had he had any contact with Brayley from the time that she was born until you found him after we took possession?
He had contact, yes, previously.
Do you know how much?
I do know that he stated that he hasn't seen the child in 3 months.
Okay.
Now, that's what
Your Honor, I'm going to request that Ms. Pierce be placed on mute. She keeps interrupting testimony constantly.
Sorry.
I'm going to mute you until it's your turn to ask questions, Ms. Pierce.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Ms. Dravin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, did Mr. Goldsmith advise you that he had any care and control over Brayley during the time from when she was released from the hospital in September until the child was placed in the department's care?
No.
And it's been at least 3 months. Did he tell you that he had concerns or not have concerns when the last time he saw Brayley?
He had concerns, and his concerns were for Brayley's medical.
At this time, based upon what you've seen of Brayley and of both parents, do you feel like it was safe to continue Brayley in Miss Pierce's care on April the 6th when we took possession?
Yes.
Let me rephrase that, Ms. Aguirre. Do you think it would have been safe to leave the child in Miss Pierce's care on April 6th?
No, sorry.
Do you think it would have been safe to leave the child in Mr. Goldsmith's care on April 6th?
No.
Do you think that it's safe to return the child to either parent today under the circumstances?
No.
Are you asking the court then to continue the department as temporary managing conservator of Brayley for the time being, and for both Mr. Goldsmith and Miss Pierce to be allowed to work some services to learn how to take care of their child?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Got you. Ms. Pierce, do you have any questions for Ms. Aguirre?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stevens, any questions?
Just a couple.
Okay.
To be clear, my client was not living in the home at the time of this removal, correct?
Correct.
Do you know how long before the removal my client had been living in the home, or had he?
He said he hadn't seen the child in 3 months.
Okay.
No, I can tell you.
Your Honor, Ms. Pierce is interrupting me now.
No, I would.
Ms. Pierce, I'm going to mute you again until you have questions to ask. Go ahead.
I'll pass the witness now.
All right, thank you. Ms. Naranjo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Aguirre, when did you become aware that Ms. Pierce refused to return the child to the department once the order was made to remove?
On the day that we received the order to remove, we went out there.
And at no point did you inform myself or CASA directly that Ms. Pierce had left with the child, correct?
Correct.
And at any point, did you inform myself and CASA directly that the child had been located by the department?
Correct.
And at this point, the only reason that CASA and myself became aware where the child is currently placed is because CASA inquired of that from St. Francis, correct?
Correct.
Now, why is the child still currently in the NICU?
They are still monitoring her for medical lab work and to make sure that she's growing like she needs to and gaining weight.
And she had been diagnosed with a failure to thrive, is that correct?
Yes.
And she is currently about 8 months old, give or take, correct?
Correct.
And she weighs about 8 pounds at this point, correct?
She has gained weight.
How much does she weigh now?
She's at 10 point, if I'm not mistaken. I think the last time that I talked to them, I think she had gained weight at least 10 pounds now.
And was that weight gained while she was in the care of the hospital?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that that is not a appropriate weight for an 8-month-old?
Yes.
And is an 8-month-old also fed through a feeding tube?
Yes.
And so does the department have concerns that Ms. Pierce has been neglecting caring for this child and that reflects on the child's weight at this point?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
All right. Anyone have further questions for Mr. Geary?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then. Do you want her to stay, Mr. Alvey, or can she be excused?
I would ask that you allow her to stay as a representative, please.
All right. So call your next witness.
I would call Dr. Faircloth. Thank you, Dr. Faircloth. My name is Todd Alvey. I represent the Child Protective Services. Are you familiar with a child by the name of Brayley?
Yes, I am.
And in what capacity have you been familiar with this child?
I've been one of the pediatricians helping care for her.
And when did you begin your care for this child?
My first appointment with her was on December 18th.
And how old was Brayley at that time?
Around 4 months of age.
And what was her physical? How was she physically in December when you saw her?
She looked really, really good considering she had been significantly premature. But she was stable. She seemed healthy, and she was small, but considering her gestational age, she looked good overall.
Who brought the child into you in December?
Her mother.
And that would be Miss Erica Pierce?
I think so.
And since December, how many times have you had an opportunity to see this child?
How many times personally have I seen her?
Yes, let's stay with personally. How many times personally have you seen the child?
Two other visits, not counting the original one in December. So 3 total.
Okay. So when was the second visit?
That was on January 25th.
So about a month later, you saw the child, Brayley, again.
A little over that, yes.
And did you have any concerns at that time with Brayley's care from the time that you saw her in December until you saw her in January?
I did notice that her weight percentile had come down some, but she had been recently ill. So I discussed that fact with her mother, that the weight might have been because of her recent illness. And I had been concerned enough to ask her to follow back up with me in about a week or so. Or I think at that point I said, come back in about a month for a checkup, just to make sure that things look good.
And did Miss Pierce follow your request to follow up in a month?
No.
When was the third time that you saw Brayley?
That was on December 26th, or excuse me, March 26th.
And how was Brayley at that time?
She was even further diminished as far as her weight percentile. And she was more thin appearing to me. She had stable vital signs. She was alert. She was interactive, but I could tell that her weight, by comparison to her height, had diminished.
Did you make any recommendations to Miss Pierce at that time?
I recommended that Brayley be admitted to the hospital so that we could work up and try to figure out why she had not been gaining sufficient weight.
And what was Miss Pierce's response when you advised that you put Brayley in the hospital?
She was hesitant at first. We had some back and forth between her and my resident doctor who I had helping me that day. And by the end of the visit, Miss Pierce seemed to express almost a relief or that she was happy that Brayley would get care and that she would be informed or taught appropriate feeding techniques and things like that.
Do you think it would have been important for Miss Brayley to learn those techniques?
Oh, yes.
And do you think that she needed some instruction in those techniques on March 26th when you were asking the child to be placed at the hospital?
So based on a previous visit that she had with my colleagues, the amount of feedings that Brayley had been receiving should have resulted in more weight gain than we had observed. And so either her mother was not feeding her the amount that she said she was feeding, or there was some other reason why Brayley was not gaining weight sufficiently, and those things needed to be investigated. If it was poor feeding techniques, then yes, Brayley's mother would benefit greatly from receiving that education and that information.
Do you know if Miss Pierce took your advice and admitted Brayley into a hospital at that time on March 26th?
The next day when I called the hospital floor to check on her, I was told that she had not brought Brayley.
In which hospital did you anticipate that Miss Pierce was going to admit Brayley into?
BSA.
And was that Miss Pierce's selection or your selection?
Miss Pierce's selection.
Have you seen Brayley since the March 26th visit?
I have not.
Are you aware that she's in care of the department and in the hospital at this time?
As of last Friday, I knew she was still in the hospital. I did not know for sure if she was still there today.
And are you aware that she's gaining weight in the hospital at this time?
Through informal conversations with the head of her care team, I had heard that she is doing better. I had heard that they were feeding her slowly to avoid complications of her being fed too much too soon, and that they had anticipated that she would be able to go home sometime in the near future.
When you saw Brayley on the 26th, did you observe her G-tube?
Yes.
Were there any concerns that you had about that G-tube on the 26th?
I don't remember being concerned at that time.
Do you know if the G-tube was had excess drainage or was infected or inflamed in any form or fashion?
I don't believe that it was. If I would have noticed something like that, I would have addressed it before sending her out.
During the time that you had contact with Brayley, did you ever have contact with Brayley's father, Mr. Goldsmith?
I've never met him.
Thank you, Dr. Faircloth. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Pierce, do you have questions for Dr. Faircloth?
No, sir.
All right, Ms. Stevens, questions?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Naranjo?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Dr. Faircloth, how much did Brayley weigh at 4 months of age?
If you would allow me to check my graph here, I could answer that question for you.
Certainly.
She weighed 3.53 kilograms.
And how much did she weigh on March 26th when you saw her last?
4.12 kilograms.
And was that increase concern to you?
It was concerning that it was an insufficient increase.
What would have been a sufficient increase by that point?
I mean, I would have to be able to calculate the average child gains 20 to 30 grams per day, roughly over that at that age. But Brayley being premature, it would have been acceptable for her to gain less than 20 grams per day, but 15 to 20 would probably be an average. I can't give you those numbers without calculating.
But it's fair to say that from December to March, it should have been far more than a bit over 1 kilogram.
Yes.
Now, did you diagnose Brayley with failure to thrive?
I believe at that last visit, I did, if it wasn't already on the chart.
And the child has a G-tube. Will she have that G-tube for ideally the rest of her life, or will it be removed at some point?
Most children who are born premature who require assistance with feeding eventually develop feeding skills that enable them to feed by mouth. It is a wait and see kind of thing.
Do you have any concrete idea of when Brayley may have her G-tube removed at this point?
No.
Could the removal be delayed by her insufficient weight gain?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, anyone have further questions for Dr. Fairclough?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, Ms. Pierce?
Yes, sir, Dr. Fairclough. If I'm not sure, like I said, probably have a lot of patients you see. At one point in time, I know that I came into your office and I spoke with you about her weight gain, and I was feeding her 6 ounces, and you had told me that I was feeding her too much. So I went back down to 5 ounces.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. Does she have a question or not? Because it sounds like she's just testimony.
Ms. Pierce, you'll be allowed to testify on your own when you're ready to, but right now it's just, do you have questions for him?
Do you remember telling me that? Do you remember showing me, going and printing out the weight chart and showing me and telling me you weren't concerned, because I was concerned about her weight at that time?
I don't remember that.
I pass the witness, sir.
All right, anyone else have further questions for Dr. Fairclough?
No, Your
All right,
Honor.
if not, can he be excused?
Please, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Dr. Fairclough, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Albee, any other witnesses?
I would call Miss Lindsay Thomas, or Thompson, Your Honor, excuse me.
Thompson, okay.
What does Avion Healthcare do?
We provide private duty nursing services for pediatrics in the home.
In that capacity, are you familiar with a child by the name of Brayley?
Yes.
And with that child, are you familiar with Brayley's mother, Miss Erica Pierce?
I met her. It was actually my clinical supervisor, Misty, who actually did the assessment for her. I have talked to Erica on the phone prior to that.
And did you with Avion Services offer Miss Pierce offer to perform services for her or provide services for? Was Miss Pierce receptive to being offered services?
At first, yes. Kind of had to play catch around trying to get her admission done, but she did accept the nurse, I believe, once. I can pull this up actually. We did staff once, and then in January 30th, Mom reached out and asked if she had to have nursing services. Of course, at that time, it was her choice. So we discontinued care.
Has she asked that you come back into the home at any time?
She has not. I've been reaching out to get the tablet and do a discharge assessment, but we have not had a response.
So with premature baby that's losing weight, she's avoiding your phone calls.
Correct.
What type of services would you have been able to provide to Miss Pierce?
We would have been able to provide nursing assessments during shift. We would have been able to monitor weight, assess feeding difficulties, and make sure that the feedings were administered as ordered.
And that would have been beneficial to Brayley,
Yes.
especially if the doctor said that she wasn't gaining sufficient weight and therefore was in a failure to thrive situation.
Yes.
You could have helped with that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I'll pass the witness.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Pierce, do you have questions for Ms. Thompson?
Yes, sir, I do. My question is, the lady that you sent, how old was she that you sent her out? She did come out here. Do you remember how old she was, the lady that you sent out here?
Deborah, she is an older nurse. I would say 60s.
75. How many times did you, because, how many times did she come out here? Just once, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And do you remember, or do you not remember sending me text messages saying she was sick, she was going to have to reschedule, and trying to send other nurses out to my location?
Yes, we did send you those.
And do you not remember me telling you that I didn't want a whole bunch of different people in? Wanted one nurse consistently with her because I didn't want that many people in and out of her life like that.
Yes.
Okay.
And we
thank
also
you.
sent a message asking if she could work 1 week, and I believe y'all were sick that week.
Ms. Pierce, any other questions?
No, sir. That's it.
Okay. All right, Ms. Stevens, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Yes.
Mr. Ronho?
Ms. Thompson, is the service you provide, is it of any cost to Ms. Pierce? No, it is not, because her Medicaid it covers it fully. And did you try to establish just one nurse being assigned to Ms. Pierce? Yes. I'll pass the witness.
All right, anyone have further questions for Ms. Thompson? All right, then, can she be excused?
No objections from the department, Your Honor.
Anyone else? All right, then. Ms. Thompson, I'll remove you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.
All right, Mr. Alvey, any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor. I'll rest at this time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Pierce, would you like to testify, or do you have any witnesses to call?
Yeah, I'll have my mom.
Okay, is she there with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll have to get her where she can hear us and we can hear her. All right, Ms. Pierce, you can ask her questions you want to now.
Okay. Did I appear to not feed my kid or to attend to my kid as like I was supposed to?
From what I've seen, she's a very good mom. She always, that baby is pretty much always on that, hooked up to that machine. Always. And there is a counter on that machine as well that counts and records every drop of formula that goes into that baby. So yes, she takes very good care of this baby.
And have I not told you? Every time I've left a doctor's appointment, have I not called you and told you or explained to you what the doctor has said as many times as I've gone and asked him that I was, about how much I should be feeding her?
Yes, there was one point where you told me that you was concerned about her weight, and Dr. Faircloth had told you that.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Okay, I'm sorry, but
yeah, you can't say what someone else told you unless they're party to the lawsuit.
Okay, I apologize.
Okay, that's fine.
But yes, she's always taking care of the baby, and she's always on that feeding tube.
Okay.
She just probably that Dr. Faircloth had not instructed her on how much to increase her feedings.
I'm going to object as non-responsive to any question. She just continued to ramble.
Yeah, just Ms. Pierce, you can keep asking specific questions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sir.
That's all right.
You that's all, sir.
Okay, all right. Mr. Albee, did you have any questions for Ms. Brown?
Miss Brown, did Erica take Brayley to a doctor or clinic in Clarendon just prior to March 26th?
I don't think she ever took her to the clinic, but I know she has had to call 911 before for the baby. And she has taken the baby several times to the ER in Amarillo. And
Do you know if, okay, thank you, ma'am. Do you know if there were concerns that Erica had or that you had concerning Brayley with her G-tube? Was it inflamed or infected?
no, it never has been. And it will always be because her
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Yeah, just answer the question
Answer
you're
no.
asking, Ms.
Brown. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Stevens, any questions for Ms. Brown?
Just a couple. Ms. Brown, do you have any medical training?
Yes, I've been a CNA for 20 years of my life. Yes, ma'am, I do.
And was that in a pediatric? Were you working with pediatrics?
Geriatrics. I worked with trachs, the feeding tubes, amputees.
I'm sorry. I said, have you worked with pediatrics? Yes or no?
No.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo, any questions?
Miss Pierce, would you say that your daughter is a good mother?
Ms. Brown.
I mean, Miss Brown, I'm sorry. Miss Brown, would you say that your daughter is a good mother?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
And you understand that there was a court order that the child was to be placed with CPS, correct?
Yes, I do.
And do you think a good mother would refuse to give the child when there's a court order?
That's a tough question. Depending on the situation, this baby was taking her for no reason. The baby does not weigh 8 pounds. She is not at Northwest Texas Hospital. And
Your Honor, I'm objecting non-responsive.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Brown, just answer the question that you're asked.
I apologize.
So yes or no, do you think a good mother would refuse to obey a court order?
It depends on the situation. There's not a yes or no to it.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay. Anyone have further questions for Ms. Brown? All right, then, Ms. Pierce, did you have any other witnesses or do you wish to testify?
Hello.
Yes. Do you have any other witnesses or do you want to testify?
I'm okay. No questions.
Okay. All right, then, Ms. Seal, did you have any witnesses? I'm sorry, Ms. Stevens, not Ms. Seal. Ms. Seal's gone.
Yes, I'll call Ms. Pierce.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, Ms. Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Pierce, my client, Mr. Goldsmith, was not in the home prior to the removal, correct?
He had been gone maybe 4 days, 5 days tops.
Objection to non-responsive.
Rule. I think she answered you.
So he had been out of the home before the removal, correct? Yes or no?
Yeah, 4 days. Yes.
And you were under the impression that we had a secret hearing last Friday that you weren't told about. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Even though I assume either your caseworker or your attorney let you know that had been rescheduled and none of us actually appeared on the 12th. Are you aware of that?
I was just told that it was being rescheduled. That's all I was told.
So if you were told it was being rescheduled, then a secret hearing did not happen, correct?
Yes, ma'am. But the way I was told about
Objection to non-responsive after everything after yes, ma'am.
Okay, sustained. Ms. Pierce, I can tell you there was no hearing held, and I'm the only court that would have held the hearing. So
okay.
No, I haven't asked another question, Ms. Pierce.
Okay,
now,
I got it.
Have you had any mental health treatments?
I don't have mental health issues, ma'am.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Albee.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Pierce, I take it from your answer that you don't have any mental issues, then you're telling me you've not received any mental treatment?
Yes, sir. No, I have not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Ms. Naranjo, any questions?
Miss Pierce, did you disobey a court order to return the child to the department?
I did not have a court order at the time.
Did you ever return the child to CPS before April 9th?
They took the baby April 9th from Rhonda, who is a friend of mine.
So you never gave the child directly to CPS at any point?
No.
Why is that?
But I never received a court order. And until I had the court order in my hand, I'm not going to just give my baby to anybody until I have a piece of paper that's sealed and, it's legal. I'm not going to hand my baby over to anybody.
I'll pass those.
All right. Anyone else have further questions for Ms. Pierce? All right. Then let's see. Ms. Stevens, did you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, I do not.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Naranjo, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, then. I do need to clear up one thing. Ms. Pierce, I need to tell you, I know that you told me today you wanted to represent yourself, but at any time while this case is pending, if you want an attorney, I did find that you were entitled to an attorney. So if anytime you want an attorney, I will go ahead and put Ms. Seal back as your attorney. All you have to do is let my office know.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Goldsmith, if you'd unmute for a minute.
Yes, sir.
All right, can you hear me? Mr. Goldsmith, you have been pled as what's called an alleged father. That tells the court that you were not married to Miss Pierce at the time Brayley was born. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were you at the hospital when Brayley was born?
No, sir.
Okay, so I assume from that no one at the hospital gave you some papers to sign that's called an acknowledgement of paternity, where you would have admitted that you're the biological father of Brayley? You didn't sign anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay, then I need to tell you that you have the absolute right to have paternity testing, genetic testing to prove you are or you're not the biological father of Brayley, or you have the right to just tell me that you don't want that testing.
I would like the test just to be sure.
Okay, all right then. I'm not sure. Did you fill out paperwork for an attorney?
I'm sorry?
Did you fill out paperwork to ask for a court-appointed attorney?
I'm not sure. I got a packet of paper that I was informed to fill out just yesterday, the day before, on my email.
Okay,
that's
fine. That's fine. I'm just asking because typically the court does not appoint attorneys for alleged fathers until they've done the paternity testing to prove that you are the biological father. Never mind. I'm going to order the paternity testing. So, Ms. Naranjo, your recommendation, please.
Your Honor, I do have concerns about lack of communication between the department, myself, and CASA regarding updating us that the child had been basically missing and had not been in the care of the department, and also that we were not updated that the child had been returned to the department's care or that the child was placed in Northwest Hospital until CASA inquired on placement. I've also had trouble getting in contact with Northwest Hospital at this point to get an update on how the child is doing. I believe CASA went and saw her in person last week, so she's doing well, but I'd like to get that information provided to me as soon as possible. Regarding the recommendation, I do believe it's in the child's best interest that the department be named temporary managing conservator and that the parents be named possessory conservator and the child continue with her current placement.
Okay. And are we all on the same page? Is Brayley at the hospital today? Ms. Sessions is saying yes. So, okay.
No. From her health records, I am informed that she's placed in foster care.
Judge, I can let Mr. Armendariz answer that, since this case is an investigation case. He is the one who knows for certain where this child is. So, Brian, tell us where this child is.
Currently at Northwest Texas Hospital here
in the NICU.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. Then, based on the evidence I've heard today, I will continue the department's temporary managing conservator. We'll continue Brayley's current placement in the hospital until the hospital and the professional say it's time for her to be discharged. We'll have the next hearing, what's called a status hearing, on May 17th, 2024. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing. So parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of May 17th to see exactly what time we'll have that hearing. Ms. Pierce, the purpose of this next hearing is the department's going to give you what's a written plan. It's called a plan of service. That's the things that they want you to do.
Yes, sir.
At that status hearing, if there's anything that they're asking you to do that you don't think you should have to, or that you don't think you could do, it's important that you let me know at that hearing so I can decide what services I might or might not order that you have to complete.
Yes, I'll do whatever services I have to, sir.
Okay, well, that's fine. And again, just keep in mind that you are entitled to ask me to reappoint an attorney for you at any time you feel like you're in over your head. Just let my office know.
Okay, and I have a question, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a court of record?
Yes, it's court of record. Uh-huh.
Okay. Are the minute orders being logged?
The court reporter is taking down everything that was said today. That's Amy Taylor. It says Amy Taylor CSR.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I needed to ask.
At any time, if you, I have found that you were indigent, entitled to an attorney. At any time, if you need a transcript of any of the hearings, then you're entitled to get that at no cost to you. You just have to let my office know.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it, sir.
Okay, all right.
Your Honor.
Judge.
Everybody's talking. Let's take one at a time. Mr. Alva, you had something?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I would ask that you also order for us to get a baseline test a hair follicle and UA drug screen on Miss Pierce and Mr. Goldsmith.
All right. Ms. Pierce, are you located in Amarillo?
No, sir, I'm not.
Where are you at?
I'm in Clarendon.
Okay. And Mr. Goldsmith, I forgot to, part of my ruling is that I'm going to order paternity testing for Mr. Goldsmith. Mr. Goldsmith, where do you reside?
I'm in Amarillo right now.
You're in Amarillo?
Yes, sir.
Are you here today?
In Amarillo, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have transportation?
I do not at the moment.
Okay. I'm going to put the parents and Ms. Sessions, who do you want? Who's going to be in charge of this now that the department has continued?
The worker is going to be Peyton Sim and her supervisor is Kayla Martinez.
Okay, but we don't have them with us, right?
No, Jordan is actually covering for Peyton. She's out. She is in this hearing right now. So she'll be just intermittent worker until Peyton gets back.
I guess my question is, who do I need to put in a breakout room with the parents so that we can arrange for the drug testing?
Jordan and I can take care of that. We'll take care of that today.
Is Jordan with you?
No, sir. She's in the hearing.
Oh, she is.
She is, Your Honor.
Oh, there she is. She's at the bottom. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to order that both Miss Pierce and Mr. Goldsmith, both hair strand and UA drug screen, by 4 p.m. today for sure. Mr. Goldsmith, since he's here in Amarillo, I'm not sure where you would want to send her since she resides in Clarendon. But I'm gonna put y'all in the breakout room and let you figure that out. So I will put Miss Alford, Miss Sessions, and the two parents in a breakout room. Do you want Miss Stevens? Do you want to be in there also?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm going to open the breakout room for the parents, Miss Stevens and Miss Sessions and Miss Alford, and y'all can work the drug testing out. So give me just a second to get that set up. Miss Stevens?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you behind? I know you had to be in federal court at some point.
Yes, sir. I can do about 15 or 18 minutes before I've got to run inside for federal court.
Okay. And your client's in the waiting room. He's trying to join, but so far he's not been successful at it. I'm going to go ahead and call the case while we're seeing if he can connect out here today on a status hearing. Mr. Albie's with us for the department. Casa is with us. Ms. Naranjo is with us representing the child. Ms. Stevens is with us representing Mr. Goldsmith. He was trying to connect. Let me see. He may have dropped off. I'll watch the waiting room for him. And then Ms. Pierce, the mother, is with us. She's representing herself. Ms. Stevens, you may not know the answer to this, but has Mr. Goldsmith seen the service plan and has he signed it?
No, Your Honor. Apparently, he wants to work all of his services and he wants to work with his caseworker. But when I spoke with him this morning, he said that his caseworker, and I'm not saying this is true, I'm just telling you what I was told. He said the caseworker hadn't really told him what to do yet, and they needed to sign some papers. I assume that's the service plan, but he just got a new job and he doesn't want to lose the job by taking off work to sign a service plan or whatever they need. He's willing to sign anything. So I was just wondering if there's any way the caseworker could maybe email it, let him email it back or email it to me and I'll take care of it. Just because I don't think any of us want him to lose his new job. That'll be held against him later.
Yeah, I understand that. Miss Sim, can we do that? Can we just email it?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I email it to Bethany? I don't think.
Yeah, I think that would be good. That way she can discuss it with him, and we'll know that he's had counsel go over it with him. So yeah, that works well.
Okay.
Do you have my email address or do you need it?
I need it. I'm ready when you are.
Can you?
Okay, it's
Miss Stevens. You may not. We're live on YouTube. You may want to chat her on that.
I'm on the car, so I can't. But honestly, my email is public. So if you don't mind, Your Honor, I'll just give it to her real quick.
No, ma'am, I don't mind at all.
At gmail.com. And if you'll send whatever you need, I will get it taken care of for you.
You got it. I'll send it as soon as we get off this hearing.
I appreciate you very much.
Yes,
all right, Miss Stevens, I'll watch the waiting room, but when you need to go, if your client comes in and you're already gone, I'll explain to him that it's going to be sent to you and then that you'll be discussing it with him. So that should take care of him, I would think.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. I appreciate you being so flexible with me today.
Sure. You just drop off whenever you need to. Okay. I have Jessica Ledbetter. She's probably for our next hearing, I would think. That's a Dallam County case and she's CASA. So
correct. She would be in next case.
Okay. And then I have the mother from the next hearing. Those are my only two people in the waiting room. So Mr. Albie, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Miss Peyton Sim.
Okay.
And Brayley is approximately how old?
8 months.
And where is Brayley currently placed?
She's currently in a PMN foster home in Lubbock.
What does PMN foster home mean?
It's a primary medical needs foster home that they're basically licensed to take care of kids who are medically needy.
And how long has Brayley been in that particular home?
For a month and 2 days.
And how is Brayley doing today?
She's doing very well. She's gained a bunch of weight. She now weighs almost 12 pounds. She's happy there. She goes to daycare in a medical facility, and they do really well with her, and she does well there. She really enjoys being around other kids in the home, and she's laughing and smiling, and she seems to be doing well.
When the child was removed from Miss Pierce, the child was placed in a hospital, and there were some concerns that the child was not eating appropriately. Were those concerns relieved by being placed in the hospital?
Yes.
And has the child been gaining weight sufficiently since the child was removed from Miss Pierce?
Yes.
And does she still have a G-tube? Is she still feeding through a G-tube?
Yes.
Okay. And she's still gaining weight even after she left the hospital?
Yes.
The foster home in Lubbock, is that foster home making sure that Brayley attends every one of her doctor's appointments to make sure her medical needs are being taken care of?
Yes.
Child's mother is Miss Erica Pierce.
Yes.
Have you had any contact with Miss Pierce to be able to discuss the potential service plan?
I've tried to make contact to discuss the service plan. One second, I'm going to cough. But contact hasn't been made to discuss the service plan at this time.
I object to that because I messaged you back yesterday and I did not receive a message back.
All right, I can handle that when we're through with the hearing. I'll put Miss Sim and Miss Pierce in a breakout room, and then they can discuss whatever they think they need to.
Thank you, Honor. Miss Sim, about how many times have you reached out to Miss Pierce?
I called her April 22nd and received an answer, but there was like no one on the other end of the phone. And so I texted her April 22nd with no answer. I texted her April 23rd with no answer about visits. I texted her April 25th with no answer. I texted her April 30th after I went to her home to visit her, but I don't believe she was home. And then I sent her a text. And then I also texted her, or our PSW texted her May 30th or May 13th.
Thank you. And so you've made efforts to attempt to contact her and make arrangements for visitation and to discuss a possible service plan?
Yes,
I told her twice.
Your Honor, I object to Ms. Pierce continuing to interrupt.
I object to you. I have made contact with that lady several times and told her I'll go any day, any time to see my kid. Just let me know when's good for them. And she has not responded back to me.
Ms. Pierce, you'll have a chance to testify here in just a minute. If you want to make it, you need to make your objection then so I can rule on it.
It's made, all of it.
Okay, then that will be overruled. Go ahead, Mr. Alvin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sim, the facts are that you have not had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Pierce about a service plan.
That's correct.
And have you developed a service plan based upon your understanding and knowledge of the case from the review of the case file?
Yes.
Mr. Alvin, let me interject here for a minute. Ms. Sim, I take it you've not talked to Eric Goldsmith about his either from what I took today. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe I tried meeting with him and he canceled on me, and then our PSW tried meeting with him. And I don't think he was able to show up because his paternity test ran a little long. So.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do, Mr. Alvey, all the lawyers. I'm going to go ahead and recess this case. That'll give Ms. Stevens a chance to discuss Mr. Goldsmith's service plan with him. And I'm going to put Ms. Sim and Ms. Pierce in a breakout room here, and you two can stay in there as long as you want to discuss the service plan that you've developed for Ms. Pierce. Haley's not with us today, but I'll recess this today. Then Ms. Sim, you will have had time to talk to Ms. Pierce today, and Ms. Stevens will have time to talk to Mr. Goldsmith, and then we'll reconvene to discuss any problems with the service plan. So Haley will be back Monday. We'll email everybody when we'll reconvene this status hearing. So we will stand in recess today, and as I stated, I'm going to put Ms. Pierce and Ms. Sim in a breakout room so they can discuss her service plan and anything else they think they need to discuss.
Judge, can I please go in that breakout room with them as well?
Sure.
That's Miss Mincy, Your Honor.
Yeah.
And she's supervisor.
Gotcha. Okay, let me get everybody in there. Okay, as I said, I'll make a note and we'll email everybody Monday as to when we will reconvene this status hearing. So we'll stand in recess until we reconvene. And I will open the breakout room for the three of y'all. You stay in there as long as you want, discuss everything you need to.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.